me turn to Dante Mossi, President of el Banco Centroamericano de Integración Económica, to talk about sustainable finance, resilient infrastructure. You have a big challenge in the Central American region. So, Dante, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Being the last, but not being the least, let me tell you, I'm a regional bank that I work in Central America. My main beneficiary countries are from southern Mexico all the way to northern Colombia and DDR and Cuba. So with that said, let me tell you that my region is actually exposed to heat waves, droughts, fires, hurricanes and floods, and they are becoming more frequent and more intense. Despite that, I mean, this region only produces 0.5% of the carbon emissions, and yet we suffer a lot by the actions of others. Particularly, Honduras is the second highest exposed country to climate change, and Nicaragua the sixth most affected country. So that tells you how bad it is for my region. In top of that, these countries have, I mean, even though they're being successful, there are corridors in which poor people live, and they are exposed to, particularly to heavy droughts, and when it rains, to floods. So all these negative effects have a consequence in human development, education services, health services, clean water provision, food provision, and safe housing. So, you know, providing for a livelihood for this group of people is really one of the more direct consequences of climate change. I mean, climate change in Central America has a face, and it's called the dry corridor. So rivers actually become very bone dry during the summer, and during the winter time, they actually flood. So as a consequence of this phenomenon, we have waves of migrants moving north to Mexico and the US, looking for better opportunities for a livelihood. So, you know, the region doesn't produce oil, which is, in a way, is a blessing, because mostly lives from natural resources, and but yet deforestation and the lack of water is also affecting the region. And so one of the challenges in the region on top of this is that the investments that are being made mostly focus on mitigation and not adaptation, as Alicia mentioned before. We have been working with the Green Climate Fund, but during the last 5 years, just to give you an idea, we received 2.8% of the total financing from the Green Climate Fund. So what has been the challenge of the region? How do we actually help ourselves to actually fix this problem and start working on adaptation? So for many of you, probably you don't know this bank, but this bank was created 60 years ago, so this is our 60-year anniversary. And we actually look for partners, so I'm so glad I have most of my governors here, Spain, Mexico, and also friends like in France, Germany, and Korea, and the Republic of China and Taiwan, that have been, you know, helping this bank grow for the last 60 years. So with that said, I mean, this bank has actually managed to increase the credit rating. We are the best rated financial institution in Latin America, the best development bank with this rating, AA. And we are actually looking to do things differently. I mean, I really love the title of this conference, which is, you know, exactly what we do. Integration, innovation, and inclusion. Those are the three challenges that my bank has. And so with that said, the commitment of my governors was in 2015 was to actually to align with the agreements with the made in Paris. And also when I arrived 2 years ago, we actually, you know, imitated some of my peers in refusing to finance anything to do with coal, and we made the commitment to finance only green energy, and so we actually are the largest financier of dams, thermal plants, and solar and wind energy plants in the region. And in this innovation, I mean, we are actually really looking to work with countries to a full decarbonization agenda in the region. So with that said, we are actually innovating. So we went out to the market and sold the first green bond ever. And I must say, to my surprise, these bonds had an oversubscription of 4 times what we expected, and they were mainly bought in Asia. So reflecting our strong, links that we have with Asia, and 20% from Europe. So again, my extra-regional members actually are a strength that actually we appreciate heavily. Also, learning from my peers, we are actually working in this agenda, how do we break from this cycle? When we talk about climate change and the consumption of carbon, one of the sectors that is most heavily participating in this is transport. And so I was chatting with Axel, which I know from his work in Argentina and some other countries, and I said the difference I have working at the World Bank now at CAVE is that I get to actually, lead the institution into financing these innovative schemes that are not innovations. I mean, Paraguay has done it. They have moved to cleaner fuels. So with the help of France, in particular, and Germany, we're moving towards moving the fleet, the public fleet, from diesel to a fully electric transport to really delink the economy from oil prices and consuming oil. So we are financing electric trains, and believe me, I mean, I didn't know that we were that interesting of a market that when my countries announced that they will finance an electric train, we had a lot of pushback from countries that wanted to say, oh no, use diesel engines, they are cheaper and better for you. So, I mean, from all over the world, let me tell you. And so that tells you that the region is very committed, and we are really willing to innovate, but innovate in the sense that these are technologies that always have been in the market, but somehow they have been kind of considered like too advanced from to be implemented in my countries. So just wanted to say, because I know I'm the last in the list, that we are very grateful for being here and having the support of this wider community. I really look forward to work with all my peers in the blue economy to make sure our Caribbean Sea is actually a job-generating machine that actually is sustainable, a source of tourism, a source of food for many people, but also working with other partners in other innovative technologies, how to trade with food in the Caribbean. They're all these islands are actually importers, net importers of food. And most of their food, I mean, in Cuba, if you've ever been there, comes from Russia and China. It doesn't look fresh, I mean, when you taste it. So it's really amazing how this part of the world is so much affected by climate change, yet, there's a lot of speech, but very little action. So in a way, I really appreciate the time to actually highlight the region and highlight the efforts that my institution is doing. And I really look forward to work together with you. One of the things, probably last thing, the proportion of financing from this institution in Central America is basically about the amount of the IDB and the World Bank together. So it's very relevant and becoming larger thanks to new partners that are joining the CAVE. And this is because of the credibility on these investments that have been there since about 20 years ago. So thank you, and I do appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And Dante, I want to thank you indeed, because also you're doing a big effort to make migration an option. And you're participating very actively in the development projects of the northern countries of Central America. And I think that's very crucial, and thank you for that, Dante.